Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, JTF. My name is Chaim ben Pesach. This program is dedicated to elevating the souls of Simcha Chazdai, Pesach Van Sir, Harab Meir Kehana, Bari Hoffman, Reuven Hoffman, and Yosef ben Meir. We have so many topics that I want to speak about this week. So many things have happened. I'm going to try to run through them as quickly as we can. Obviously, there is very limited time that we have on these videos, but we're going to try to run through the topics and try to do justice to the topics this week. We want to speak about the Brexit vote, the decision of England to leave the European Union. We want to speak about why JTF supports independence for Scotland, why JTF supports the reunification of Ireland. We want to speak about Donald Trump's reaction to the Brexit vote, going to his golf course and promoting his golf business in Scotland. We want to speak about some things in Israel too, if we have time. Abu Mazen Mahmoud Abbas, the chief PLO Fatah Nazi terrorist, says that rabbis and Jews are trying to poison the wells of what he calls Palestinians. Of course, there are no Palestinians, there is no Palestine, but he claims that the rabbis are trying to poison the wells of the Arab Muslims in the land of Israel. And we want to speak about David Bitan, who is the head of the Knesset coalition, Knesset member and the head of the Knesset coalition, saying that the heads of the Mossad and the Shabak are all leftists. Why are they all leftists? We want to comment on that. Let's see if we can cover all of these subjects. It's not going to be easy, because that's a lot. Usually we only do 2 subjects every week, so this is going to be a challenge. Let's see if we can cover these subjects. Let's start out with the Brexit vote, the decision of England to leave the European Union. The British people, 52% of the British people, in this referendum ignored all the experts, all the professors, all the media people, all the politicians and political parties, or almost all the politicians, not all of them, but the vast majority of politicians, and said that they want sovereignty and independence for England. They don't want England ruled by the European Union. They don't want England's sovereignty and national identity swallowed up by the bureaucrats in Brussels who run the European Union. How I wish the Jews of Israel had the opportunity to cast votes in democratic referendums like this. You know, our leader, Morenu veRabbeinu, Harab Meir David Kehana Zecher Tzadik Vekadosh Livracha Hashem Yikom Damo, Rabbi Meir Kehana, blessed memory, our great leader, called for the right of the Jewish people to decide their destiny in referendums, in democratic referendums. And he was banned because he was calling for true democracy and for the right of the people to make decisions in referendum-type questions put before the voters. If only the people of Israel had the right to decide in referendums many key issues, I think Israel would be in better shape, because the people certainly are much better than the evil politicians that are running Israel. Unfortunately, they don't give that right to the people of Israel. And no matter how many times the people of Israel vote for what they think is a right-wing government, they still get the same left-wing policies, because the so-called right, the phony right, the Likkud, the Jewish Home Party, Israel is Our Home, which is Avigdor Lieberman's party, Shas, all these parties that are supposedly right-wing parties, all adopt left-wing positions and pursue left-wing agendas once they get into power. So everything here is a hoax and a farce, and the people of Israel and their will is never respected. But in Britain, the British people, given this opportunity through a referendum, decided to make the leap, decided to take the leap and make a decision that took some guts, and they decided they don't want any part of the EU. And I think that they, from the standpoint of British interests and the standpoint of England, made the right decision. I think that they made a decision that was good for England and good for English interests. And they really should serve as an example, and the voters of England should serve as an example to the Jewish people. This is what we need to do. We need to break away and be independent. We need to be independent of U.S. foreign aid, because U.S. foreign aid is something that Israel doesn't need. Israel does not need the $3 billion a year that it receives from the United States taxpayers. First of all, this $3 billion has to be spent on all types of things that Israel doesn't need or want. Israel's required to spend all the money on weapons systems in the US instead of producing her own weapon systems. Israel is capable of being totally militarily and economically self-sufficient, of being able to produce all of her weapons on her own. With Jewish brains, Israel can produce all of her weapons on her own. But she's forced not to produce her weapons. She's not allowed to produce her own weapon systems. And she is forced to purchase weapon systems in the United States with this so-called foreign aid. So it's something that actually hurts Israel. In addition, Israel's not allowed to sell weapons to countries like India, which want to purchase Israeli weapons. Many countries want to purchase Israeli weapons. The United States vetoes Israel's weapons sales and says, well, if you're going to sell weapons to all these countries, we're going to cut off your foreign aid. You can't do that because we're giving you foreign aid. So billions and billions of dollars in weapons sales that Israel could be profiting from every year, Israel isn't able to do because of the so-called foreign aid. And I could give you a million other examples. Israel gave up the whole Sinai because of the threats of losing foreign aid and lost billions of dollars a year in oil revenue. You know, the Sinai has enough oil to make Israel energy independent for the next 100 years and to be a big net exporter of oil, billions and billions of dollars in oil exports that Nazi Egypt now is able to benefit from because Israeli scientists found oil in the Sinai. And Israel gave away all her oil fields and gave away the whole Sinai, gave away all the mineral resources, gave away a territory that is 3 times the size of the rest of Israel. The Sinai would have made Israel a country that's not so tiny anymore. Gave away everything. And most importantly, gave away land that the Torah says belongs to the Jewish people, committed a terrible sin. Did all of this because the Jews in Israel said, well, if we don't do this, Jimmy Carter's going to get mad at us. Maybe this will endanger our foreign aid. U.S. foreign aid is a disaster for Israel. U.S. foreign aid and Israeli artificial dependence on U.S. foreign aid are an absolute catastrophe for Israel and the Jewish people. Israel has to declare her independence from U.S. foreign aid, from worrying about trade deals with the European Union. Israel should worry about her own interests and do what is in her own best interests. And then she will get far better trade deals and far more commerce, especially when it comes to military arms agreements. She'll get far more benefits if she had a true policy of self-sufficiency and independence. So we want the Jewish people to learn a lesson from this and do what the people of England had the guts to do in this vote. But as a result of this vote, now the people of Scotland, which is 40% of the territory of Great Britain, 40% of Great Britain's territory now is Scotland, the northern part of Great Britain, the northern section of Great Britain. 40% of all their land is in Scotland, and the people of Scotland, according to the latest polls, want independence. They had an independence referendum. A big fair campaign was initiated to convince them not to vote for independence in 2014, September of 2014. We at the time, JTF at the time, supported Scottish independence. We did a video, in fact a real extensive video, I thought it was a great video, encouraging the people of Scotland to vote yes on independence. But the scaremongering tactics worked, and 55 to 45%, it was a 55% no, 45% yes, the people of Scotland voted down their chance at independence. But now, because of this latest vote of England wanting to leave the EU, the people of Scotland now want a second independence referendum and should be given that right. The majority of the people of Scotland now want independence, according to 2 new polls that just came out. A majority of the Scots want to be free and independent from the British Empire and from British control. And this would be the best thing for Scotland and would be a very good move, and JTF will support it. And the people of Ireland now, the people of Northern Ireland, are now looking at the prospect of reuniting with the rest of Ireland. You know, Ireland is artificially divided for centuries by the cruel British occupation, the cruel decision of the British Empire. First of all, to occupy Ireland as a whole. The British used to occupy all of Ireland, and they murdered millions of Irish people in the Irish potato famine. They starved to death millions of Irish men, women, and children. They committed a Holocaust against the people of Ireland, just as the British committed a Holocaust against the Jewish people. The Nazi Holocaust would never have happened if not for the British, if not for British perfidy and betrayal. When 6 million Jews were facing the ovens and gas chambers of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, they could have gone to the land of Israel, which at that time was controlled by the British. The British deliberately kept them out. They shut the doors to the land of Israel. Millions of Jews would have gladly done anything to escape the ovens and gas chambers of Auschwitz and the death camps. They would have gone to the land of Israel gladly instead of going to the death camps. But the British shut the doors, and to show how evil the British Nazis were, they actually bombed Jewish refugee ships in the Mediterranean. Bombed the refugee ships. Refugee ships with hundreds of Jewish men, women, and children were trying to get into the land of Israel. They were either going to go there or they were going to go back to Auschwitz. And so the British bombed the ships, sunk the ships, and murdered. The British murdered hundreds of Jewish men, women, and children, Jewish refugees that were trying to get into their own homeland. So the British are responsible for the murder of 6 million Jews. The British deliberately did everything they could to prevent the rescue of the Jews during the Holocaust. They wanted the Jews to be murdered. They were always Jew haters. And so I can tell you now, when the British hypocritically point their finger at Israel and say, you're occupying the land of Arabs. First of all, the Jews are not occupying anything except their own land. For the British to talk about occupying other people's land, what hypocrites, what low-life, corrupt, evil, vicious hypocrites. And God will curse you and punish you like you can't imagine in the next world for what you've done to the Jewish people over the years. You have no idea what awaits you. But just so that you'll know, the British, who hypocritically point their finger at the Jewish people and tell the Jewish people that Jews are not allowed in their own capital to build in their own capital of Jerusalem, the British who constantly demand that little Israel commit national suicide, after the British murdered 6 million Jews during the Holocaust by closing the doors of escape from Nazi Europe into the land of Israel. These British hypocrites now occupy Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. And Scotland and Wales should be independent, and Northern Ireland should be reunited with the Republic of Ireland. All of them should be given the right to leave and to become independent and free from the control of the Westminster politicians, the corrupt, evil, cruel Westminster politicians. And so, if there is another referendum on Scottish independence, we hope there will be. If there is a referendum on Scottish independence, you better believe that JTF will do what it can to try to persuade the people of Scotland and try to push for Scottish independence. We favor complete independence for Scotland. By the way, Scotland has all the oil and most of the resources in Great Britain. And of course, the British steal all their oil and steal all their natural resources and then they tell the people of Scotland, oh, you shouldn't become independent. The smartest thing they could do would be to become independent. It would be the best thing that Scotland could ever do. So we're going to try to promote Scottish independence, and we're going to try to promote the reunification of Ireland. Now, and by the way, of course, I don't know how much influence JTF has on this, but, on YouTube, you reach the whole world. So I know that we reached people in Scotland with our videos on Scottish independence last time. So we'll reach a certain number of Scottish voters, and we'll reach a certain number of Irish voters if there's a referendum in Ireland. In Northern Ireland, we'll reach people, and we'll try to persuade them. Why not? I think we did a very powerful, if you look up our video that we did on Northern Ireland, I think it was on Scotland, on Scottish independence, I think it was a very, very powerful video that we did. I think it's called the best video ever on Scottish independence, something like that. Best video ever on Scottish independence. If you want to look it up on YouTube, it was a really, really great video, 18 minutes long. Now, Donald Trump, of course, always trying to exploit every situation. instead of getting benefit from this, this could have been a moment where he'd get a big benefit out of this. He could have said Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton were against the British voting to exit the EU. He could have taken advantage of this. Instead, he went to Scotland to promote his golf course. His golf course. He has a golf course and a resort in Scotland. Donald Trump announced that he's taking several days off of the campaign to promote his golf course and his resort in Scotland. Now, he's going down in the polls. The Republican Party is not uniting behind him. He's not raising money. Hillary Clinton has 40 times as much money in her campaign account as he has in his. So what does Donald Trump do? At a time like this, he takes several days off to go and promote his golf course and his money-losing golf course and his money-losing business in Scotland. I mean, what a farce. This candidate is the ultimate joke, the ultimate clown, the ultimate carnival act. How can anybody even consider putting a clown like this in the White House? What a catastrophe it would be. Do you know that the report just came out this week that he is using the money that he raises in the campaign, and he does raise money in the campaign. He's using the money raised in the campaign to funnel that money into Trump companies. He's paying Trump Towers and all these Trump companies, he's paying them millions of dollars for their so-called services for his campaign. In other words, he raises money for his campaign, and then he uses the money to pay his companies, which he owns. Just this quarter alone, over $6 million he reported funneling over $6 million from his campaign into his private companies, into his personal companies. In other words, he's enriching himself off of the campaign. Everything with him is a scam. Everything with him is a hoax. Everything with him is an attempt to sponge up as much money as he can. It's so farcical. He is such a con artist and so utterly dishonest, such a thieving, lying, cheating con artist. It's just unbelievable that all the idiots that support him and worship him, everything he does is about Donald Trump. He worships himself. Every place he goes, Trump Towers, Trump Steaks, Trump Airlines, Trump Vodka, Trump Golf Course, Trump Resorts. Everything he does, he promotes himself. And so he holds a press conference on the morning after the Brexit vote, when the results have just come in and everybody wants to know what is his reaction to the Brexit vote. Huge numbers of news media are there from all over the world. And what does he do? He spends 10 seconds talking about the Brexit vote, and then spends an hour promoting his golf course and his businesses and how wonderful it is, and how he waters his lawn, and how beautiful it is, and what a great deal it is, and why people should come there. He then said, when they asked him, but what if the pound crashes, the British pound crashes, now that Britain is leaving the EU, and there's uncertainty, and the pound is going down? He says, if the pound crashes, that's good for my business. That'll help my business. If the pound crashes, if the British economy crashes and the economy does bad, it's good for my business because it lowers prices at my resorts. So it's good for my business. That was his answer. In other words, he's rooting for the economy to go bad in the countries where he does business. He wants the economy to go bad if it's good for his business. If it's good for his business, he'll screw everybody just to make another dollar. And this is who people voted to make the Republican nominee for president and want to put in the White House. Someone who is so openly and obviously the most egotistical, selfish, self-centered piece of garbage ever nominated for anything. Now, in Israel, we have a couple of incidents that have occurred that we've done Hebrew videos on, which we're going to be uploading, which we're going to be uploading to the internet soon. We haven't uploaded them yet, but I'm going to give you in English a quick breakdown on what they're about. Just two examples of things happening in Israel. The chief PLO Fatah Nazi terrorist mass murderer Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen, Yamach Shmo v'Zichro Shem Reshaim Yirkav, may his name and memory be obliterated, may the name of the wicked rot. Abu Mazen says that the rabbis and the Jews are poisoning the wells of what he calls Palestinians. Now, there is no Palestine, there are no Palestinians, that's a lie. It's one big Arab hoax. And everybody, and because the Jews always give in to their enemies, and so even though the Jewish leaders knew that there's no such thing as Palestine or Palestinians, they still repeat the propaganda of their enemies. And this is the type of so-called leaders we have. This is the type of joke that we have in terms of the leadership of Israel in the Jewish world. But anyway, Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, the chief terrorist, he says that the Jews are trying to poison the wells of the Arabs, trying to murder Arab Muslims and poison their wells, which is the same exact thing that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis said about the Jews. They also said the rabbis poisoned the wells. And this was also said about the Jews before the Crusades and the pogroms and the Inquisitions in Europe, when hundreds of thousands of Jews were brutally murdered because they were accused of poisoning the wells and poisoning the water supply of the people of Europe, conspiring to poison the water of the people of Europe. And now Mahmoud Abbas, or Abu Mazen, sometimes he calls himself Mahmoud Abbas, sometimes Abu Mazen, he now repeats this same Nazi propaganda. And Bibi Netanyahu and all the leaders of Israel condemn him and say, how dare you, this is a blood libel, how dare you say this is what the Nazis said. And yet, Bibi Netanyahu and all the leaders of Israel would never even think of cutting back one penny from the billions and billions of dollars that they continue to give Abu Mazen and continue to give the Arab Muslim Nazis in the land of Israel. They give Abu Mazen and the Arab Muslim Nazis in Israel, Netanyahu, and Naftalí Bennett, and Avigdor Lieberman, and Aryeh Deri, they give the Arabs in Israel billions and billions of dollars, free electricity, free water, free food, free medicine, free everything. Everything for free. Things that Jews in Israel never get for free. They give them everything for free, everything on a silver platter. And they admit that the people that they're giving all these benefits to, all for free, at the expense of the Israeli Jewish taxpayers, they admit that these people have murdered thousands of innocent Jews, promise every day in their news media to exterminate the whole Jewish people, to perpetrate a Holocaust against the Jewish people, and repeat the same type of anti-Semitic hatred that we heard from Hitler and the Nazis. And this is who they're giving their money to. This is who the Jews of Israel are forced to give their money to. That's under Netanyahu and the Likud and Bennett and people who claim to be right-wing yet. They claim they're right-wingers and they're doing this. What a farce we have. What a farce. We're the only ones that would cut off all of that. We'd cut off all those benefits. They'd be starving and they'd want to leave. They'd want to leave Israel and want to leave Israel fast. And then we would help them. To leave, we would help them. Oh, what an insane situation. And how desperately we need JTF to reach the people of Israel with the truth. And by the way, if there were a referendum on what JTF proposes to do, which is pay the Arabs to leave permanently, I guarantee you, the majority of Jews in Israel would vote yes on that question in a referendum. David Bitan, who is a Knesset member, the Knesset is the Israeli parliament. David Bitan, who's also the head of the Knesset coalition. In other words, he's the head of the government coalition, the majority that runs Israel's government. David Bitan says all the leaders of Shabak and all the leaders of the Mossad is the Israeli CIA, the Shabak is the Israeli FBI, they're all leftists. Columbus discovers America. All of a sudden he realized they're all leftists. They've always been leftists. And he complains about it. What is he complaining about? It's his party and his government that have allowed the leftists to control every single major element of Israeli society. 95% of the media in Israel, leftists. 95% of the judges on the Israeli Supreme Court, Habagats, are leftists. The agents and the people, the key people that run the Shabak and the Mossad, all leftists. The generals and the officers, the officers with high positions in the Israeli army and the IDF in Tzahal, leftists. You can't get ahead in Tzahal. You can't get ahead in the Israeli army unless you're a leftist. All leftists. The left is allowed to have almost exclusive control on everything, even though most Israeli Jews are right-wing. Most Israeli Jews hate the left. And yet, the left is permitted to control everything. They control the big companies, they control most of the stocks, they control most of the wealth, they control the news media, they control the Supreme Court, they control the education system, the army, Shabak, the Mossad, you name it, they control it. Again, the problem is the people of Israel think they're voting for right-wing governments every 4 years, when in reality the so-called right-wing governments, the phony right, Likkud, these other parties, the Jewish Home Party, these other parties, in fact work for the left. They do whatever the left tells them to do. They do what the news media and the Supreme Court and the other powers from behind the scenes are telling them to do. So you get the same left-wing policies, except people who are frontmen for the left and pretend, and the phony right people who are really frontmen for the left, they carry out the left-wing policies and then they say, oh no, I'm right-wing, you see? When will the farce end? The farce will end when we have true Jewish leaders and a true Jewish alternative in the land of Israel. And the people of Israel have the same right that the people of Britain were given in this referendum. That's when all the farce will end. That's when we'll have a fighting chance again to have Jewish sovereignty and Jewish freedom and Jewish independence and Jewish redemption. And Jewish redemption will bring redemption to the world. If you agree that the message of JTF is one that has to reach the people of Israel, and also we have to wake up the people of the United States as well. But if you agree that this is a message that has to reach the people of Israel and that we have to continue to help the Jewish heroes in Judea and Samaria as JTF does, and the families of Jewish prisoners as JTF does, and wake up Jews in Israel with our message as we are attempting to do. And if you agree that it's important what we're doing in the United States and what we do in English is also an important message for the United States and the people of the world to hear, then you're in the right place. We need your prayers. We need you to be active on our main page. Hayamin.org is our main Hebrew page. JTF.org is our main English page. We have updates, by the way, on JTF.org on our main English page every single day. The great Shlomo does updates every single day. We need you to promote our videos in Hebrew and in English. And we need your financial support. Our downfall is that we never get the financial support that we need. Of course, I think we're accomplishing things. I think we accomplish things, considering our budget, I think we accomplish actually things very nicely, but it's so little compared to what is really needed. So much more is needed. Yes, we help the families of Jewish heroes and Jewish dissidents, which is a mitzvah, which is a commandment which we're required to do. Yes, we work to wake people up in Israel, and we bring a message that has to be given. But we could do so much more. With the more help we get, the more we could do. And so we ask you to help us and join with us. Checks, money orders, cash donations sent to our post office box. It makes a big difference. Every donation does make a big difference. If you prefer to do it with your credit card, if you prefer to help us with your credit card for convenience sake online, we have a PayPal account. You just go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org, and on top, in English, it's on the Hebrew main page, but you'll see the word donate in English on top. You click on the donate button, and in a couple of minutes you can very conveniently donate online. Together, let's work to make a difference here. Let's work to bring the truth to people. We've had a week with many new different developments. We're working to change things, and the world is changing quickly. Let's make sure that our voice, a right-wing Jewish voice and a right-wing righteous Gentile voice, is heard as these historic developments take place around the world. For JTF, until next week, Shalom.